Hello everybody, this is Mr. Storm, and this week we are going to learn about arrays. Arrays are an awesome data structure that you're going to use a ton when you're writing programs, and you'll see why in a minute. All right, I'm going to create a new console application. I'm going to call it Arrays Teacher Edition. I'm going to make sure that it is in my computer programming folder on my desktop. So let's go computer programming and select that folder. Perfect. I'm going to build my new application. So arrays are a very interesting data type. Arrays are essentially a variable that can store more than one piece of data, right? So if we had an int variable called num, I can only store one number in that variable. But if we instead created an integer array, we can store as many numbers as we want. So I can say int and put these brackets here on the end of int, meaning it is an integer array instead of just a regular integer. And instead of num, usually what we want to do with integers, or I'm sorry, with arrays, is we want to make them plural so that it's easier to remember that this is an array instead of just a single variable. So I'm going to make it nums. And it's mad at me because it's saying, hey, you're trying to give me an integer here, but it's an integer variable. So you actually need to do something else. With arrays here, we want to create a new set of brackets, these curly brackets right here. And it's actually shift and then that straight bracket that we used over here. So we want to create a curly bracket, and then we put our numbers in there separated by commas, And then when we're done building our array, we close off the brackets there. So now what we have is we have a numbers array, nums array, with 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 numbers inside of that array. That's a very helpful way to store all of, a bunch of data, with just one piece of memory. All right, so now let's say we want to output our array, console dot write line. And what we want to write is actually the nums array. Now what that'll do when we build our program, oh, I forgot to put a read line in there so that it can wait for me. Let me do that real quick. First of all, let's go ahead and give myself some comments so I know what I'm typing, number array. And down here, wait. And I'm going to write console.read line and make it wait for me. All right. So it should output my entire array onto the screen, but it didn't. Oh no, what happened? Well, there's an error, right? It's saying system.int32. What it's doing is it doesn't know quite how to format my array so that it shows up on my screen properly. In order to do that, to show my entire array, we would have to do a loop, which we're not going to learn until much later. So we're not going to actually worry about that. What we can do though is we can write specific indexes onto my screen. So what is an index? Well, each of these little data areas where we can store information is called an index, right? And this is where arrays get slightly confusing. Basically, arrays always start with index 0. So this is index 0, this is index 1, this is index 2, index 3, and index 4. So a 5-index array will end with index 4 because it starts at 0, right? It's just needlessly complicated. But that's okay, because as long as we understand that the first index in an array is 0, we can say, I want nums 0 to be shown on the screen. And what that'll do is it'll take this index here, and whatever's inside that index, it'll pop it onto my screen because we've indicated I want index 0 on my screen. Okay, and so we should get the number 12. Perfect. If we wanted to put the number 987 on our screen, what would we type in what index will we access? If you screamed out 4, then you are correct. Index 4. And we get 987. Perfect. So that's how you use an array to store a bunch of information, and you can access it at specific times. So let's see, what can we do with that though? Well, we can actually add those numbers together. Let's do math operations. We can actually do create a new integer variable called answer, and we will actually add nums. Let's add nums index 1, sure, to nums index, let's do 3. Okay, so it should be nums index 1, which is the number 45, plus nums index 3, which is the number 34. So let's do console dot write line equals, oh no, not equals, answer. Boom. Alrighty. So our number should be, there we go, 79, which is 45. Wait, where's my operation? Right. 45 plus 34 is 79, and that is correct. Perfect. Okay, so that works. So mathematical operations, all the operations you learned last week work with indexes, because again, all we're doing, or sorry, work with arrays, because all we're doing is we're storing information into different boxes inside of that array, and we're pulling them out as numbers, right? Perfect. So what happens if we have an index and we actually want to reassign some numbers in the index? Well, let's say reassigning indexes. I don't know if that's the plural of index, but it looks good to me. So let's say we want to reassign some numbers in our index. Let's say index 2, the 67 number, is actually not 67. We don't want it to be 67. Let's say we want it to be, I don't know, 26. So what we can do is we can access that index by calling that index exactly, say nums2, which is this index right here. And we'll say that equals, I don't know, 26, right? Now I can console.writeLine just to prove that it actually worked. Nums 2, and it should actually be 26. Perfect, 26. So, and the nice thing is, because this is just a variable, that's all it really is. An index of an array is really just a variable. We can do all that stuff. We can say nums2 equals, you know, all kinds of stuff. Nums, 1 minus answer, right? We can do all kinds of whatever we want to make it happen, to make it whatever number we want it to be. And we'll say negative 34, see? So all that works exactly the same way as you would expect your regular number operations to work. Let's say we don't know how long this array is. Let's say we want to figure out the length of an array. So determining length. Well, that's actually pretty easy. So we just create a new variable, and we'll call it len for length. And let's say nums.length. And, oh, I don't need parentheses. So nums.length. And what that does is it actually finds out, it accesses this nums array and tells me how many indexes are in the array itself. And it sends it back as an integer. Console.writeLine len. So if we did that correctly, it should be 5. There it is, 5. Perfect. Now, if you remember the way we can simplify some of our operations, we can actually just console.writeLine nums.length. And let's take a look at other options we have here. So we have stuff like average. We can average our array. We can clone our array. We can copy it, equals, get length, max, min. We can do all kinds of stuff. We're actually just going to do length and just verify that it works in a simplified command instead of having to create a new variable. And it does. All right. It's probably best to simplify your statements as much as possible. Just to make your code a little bit more sleek and agile and concise. All right, cool. Now, so far we've built an array with numbers, but can we build arrays of other data types like strings or chars or whatever? And the answer is absolutely 100% yes. We could build an array of strings, and that's simple. All we have to do is type string and then make it an array and give it a name. So I'm going to say fruit because this is going to be an array of fruit. And inside the fruit array, I want to put some stuff in there. So apple and banana and orange. Okay, so there's my array with fruit in it. And in index 0, I have apple. In index 1, I have banana. And in index 2, I have orange. Perfect. And we can actually put that to the screen by doing this. Console.writeLine. And let's format our output so that it actually looks nice. So the first fruit is going to be fruit index 0. And I'm going to use this operation, this -n, this backslash n. What that does is it actually sends it to a new line. So it basically is like me hitting enter. 2 fruit 1 3 plus fruit 2. All right. Oh, scroll over a little bit. Now let's take a look at this statement. That looks complicated, but it's actually easy if you look at what we're doing, right? 1 apple, new line, right? 2 banana, new line. 3 orange. So let's check that out and see if it actually works. Hey, 1 apple, 2 banana, 3 orange. Perfect. Now, arrays are really, really helpful. Arrays, again, allow us to store a ton of information into one data space, right? And then we can access that information individually and do things with it. We can change the information in that array. We can do additions with it. We can display those individual indexes onto the screen. So, again, this isn't super complicated, and if you've been paying attention up until this point, then arrays should be a pretty easy concept to grasp. But play around with arrays. Try to build some new arrays. Try doing all kinds of stuff with them because arrays are very helpful, and you'll need to understand this to do the project for this week. So I'm going to shut up. I'm going to let you play around with arrays and build some and get a hang of them, and then I'm going to let you go ahead and work on your project, and I will see you next week. Thank you for paying attention.